Real life.
Superpowers.
When I need to decide what I want to do, where I want to focus, follow the thought process. Am I in this environment the best person to do this? If the answer is yes, then first, am I kind of technically qualified? And if yes, is it the best thing to do among other things where I'm qualified?
So, we're back from a quite long Corona break, no pun intended, and today we're excited to interview Eugene Levin. He's the Chief Strategy Officer of SEMrush, and he's also one of the first investors. SEMrush is a software solution company that offers online visibility and marketing analytics data to over 5 million monthly users. It's very good. I actually use it myself in my agency, so I'm excited at the chance of getting a peek behind the scenes of one of the key people behind the successful tool.
Real life.
Superpowers.
Up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
Real life.
Superpowers.
So, welcome to Real Life Superpowers.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And how are you holding in there with these Corona COVID-19 days?
Mostly at home. I think I'm lucky enough to have enough space, so at least I can work without too many distractions. On the other hand, it's great to be more with family, so you don't have to commute, and that probably saves another 2 hours a day. So I'm spending with my kid more time than I've ever had. And it's I think there are pros and cons. I'm trying always to find positive things in all situations. It's hard to find positives. One of the biggest and oldest car rental companies filed for bankruptcy recently. We're going to see more things like this, and then all these people who work for them, that they're going to lose their jobs, which is terrible. And on the other side of the spectrum, you have guys like Zoom. So we are using them today. For them, I think it's just their party like it's 1999, all the way. Their stock price is very high, and I think Zoom is an extreme example who just really benefited from this. I don't think this was intentional, and they're happy with this type of, benefiting from the situation. But reality is they're benefiting.
The internet as a whole, anything that's online oriented, 100% was a game here on the Corona. Like, are you working physically now from home?
We moved everyone to work from home a long time before lockdowns.
How did you do the switch?
I think it was sort of not complicated. We just one day we told people to stay at home, and they stayed at home, and everything else was normal. Like, we just didn't have the same in-person meetings, in-person communications, but otherwise nothing really changed that much.
Like, how do you implement culture now? Like,
so I think 2 months is not really enough time for the culture to deteriorate. And, especially if you have been working on it for 10 years. But I think maintaining culture in the long run, if people never meet in person, is hard. So right now we're kind of just thinking how we make sure culture stays at the level where we want it to be. We do a lot of things like, for example, mandatory camera on video, so at least people can see faces. We do Q&A sessions with the leadership team more frequently than we had done it before. So if people have questions about, how to behave in different complicated situations, that they can understand what type of solution is in line with the culture of the company. But if people don't meet in person, culture deteriorates eventually. We use the same problem between, let's say, European offices and United States offices. I mean, they never meet in person, how they exchange culture. So we were sending a lot of people back and forth. I personally, normal times I would travel, 4 or 6 times a year back and forth and spend, spend 1 month on every one round trip. So when I lived in Europe, I would go here and spend 4 or 5 months here. Now when I live in the United States, I sometimes go back to Europe and spend 1 month there. So for a global company, it's not like we didn't have this culture exchange problem to deal with at the beginning.
When did you join the company?
So I joined the company in 2016.
And when was it founded?
2008.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm relatively new here.
got it. But you're an investor in the company, right?
I personally not. I when I met founders, my occupation was an investor. I was partner in a big VC firm, but yeah, they didn't take our money. So technically, I'm not an investor. When I met them, I was an investor, and I was probably one of the first investors who kind of spotted the company. So I think before me, they maybe had a couple conversations with investors ever, and it never went forward for many different reasons. But in general, they didn't like.
So wait, like you were an investor in general as like your day job, or like?
I was partner in a firm called Target Global, which used to be quite big growth stage firm, and now it's very big European growth and late stage firm. But they also do seed and early stage. But when I joined, we were doing mostly growth stage.
What does it take to be an investor? What do you have to do, and how do you know it's like we're going for this deal? Like, what is the most important thing?
That's a very good question. I think the type of the deals that you want to do changes with the firm's strategy and with let's say period in your life. Early in your career, to have extraordinary outcomes, you have to take extraordinary risks. And I think a lot in the becoming professional, successful investor is luck at the beginning. And then over time, you can start, behaving more safe, in a more safe way and choose deals differently. For example, when we were doing first firm, we did seed stage. We didn't care a lot about pedigree of founders. We wanted to have some chemistry with them, but we didn't require people to be serial entrepreneurs or anything. And we were optimizing for valuations because we understood that with resources that we have, we need to buy good ownership very early, very cheap. So we focused on specific types of deals. So technically companies that were sort of undervalued in a way. And that was an approach. And I think with that fund, a lot of companies didn't make it, but a lot of companies showed a very, very good return. Now with the growth stage firm where I worked after that, we had different approach. So technically the idea was we should not lose money. We should pick assets where maybe they will not go up 20 times or whatever, but we should not be losing money. And it was different strategy, different approach, and criteria were very different. We were looking at who else is putting money in this company. Also because it's a late stage transaction, you can see a lot of data. So we were very, very data focused. We sliced and diced, all sort of cohorts. We did very good analysis about unit economics. So that was our focus. So I think with stage and also time in your career, things change. But I think at first, to become successful investor, you need luck, because I can write best ever, theoretically, I can write best ever textbook on how to do venture deals. And there are plenty of those books, actually. You can read all this stuff and the theory is the same, but at first you need luck. And then once you have luck, you get network. Once you have network, you start getting better deals. Once you get better deals, you can, also start getting a little bit better terms because you're such a, famous investor and everyone wants to work with you.
So what do you say no to?
For professional VCs, that would be the point of strategy. So you sit together with partners and you say, we are going to invest in A, B, C, D because, and then this because can be, we have better experience than anyone else in the world in this area. Or there is a great macro thesis. And in most cases, you want to have some sort of information asymmetry. Like I will be more successful than average person in investing in this because, even if it's a macro thesis, it should be some sort of thesis that and other people don't. So you'll have sort of more undervalued assets in your portfolio that will outperform. But this is point of strategy, and this is, from my experience, almost any strategy is good because some smart people sit together and make those decisions. And what's really hard is discipline, like to actually execute the strategy that you wanted to have. And I had this issues with strategy, with executing strategy a lot because sometimes you just get in love with certain space and you have some success there. And you have good understanding, so you start being overexposed to it. So that's why it is very important to have founders from different backgrounds because, one of the good deals that we had in our first fund was in travel space. So we started investing a lot in travel just because we liked the space and we understood it. But for the diversification point of view, it's not a good strategy. So you need to be, and we understood this, but one thing is one thing is strategy. You can have smartest strategy in the world, but you also need to have discipline to follow the strategy. That's actually hard. That's why you want to have partners who sort of do checks on you.
When you started investing, did you start off as a partner in a VC, or did you first have like a mentor and work somewhere? Like, how did you get into this whole world?
So yet again, I think I was kind of lucky. My background before VC was engineering. I'm Master of Science in Engineering. I used to work for many years in tech.
As an engineer?
Yeah, as an engineer, as a project manager. At the end, I was doing more of a business and negotiations than project management. But that's how project management role evolves. First you manage internal resources, and then you start communicating with clients. That's very natural progression. But I think at some point, I just figured out that, if you just follow this path, it might be comfortable life, but I'm not going to be rich. And and I kind of always have the goal to be rich. I don't even know why. It's probably, because when I was a kid, we would, I wouldn't say poor, but not rich. And we looked at, we watched all the movies from United States, and it just was very real that people live differently out there, and they're rich, and we are not like that. So I always wanted to sort of have eventually certain lifestyle, and I just realized, engineers make comfortable money, but it's not on that level. So started looking what else I can do. And one of my friends actually started a VC firm. And at that point, and at that part of the world, there were just not a lot of, let's say, associate that you could hire from the market. There was no market.
What part is that of the world?
Russia.
Okay.
So yeah, VC industry is still pretty much in, not very developed, but at that point it was just almost nothing. There was nowhere to.
When was this?
It was 2010 roughly. So. And
at this stage, you were like, after a few engineering jobs, sort of escalating to more business-oriented jobs,
mm-hmm.
And now your friend is opening a VC.
Yeah, I was looking for something, and he was opening the firm, and he needed someone to help with the VC firm. I didn't know anything about investing. I kind of liked the idea of investing because I was trained in statistics, and I realized that being involved in 20 things is statistically better than being involved in one thing from risk profile. So. I like the approach about not putting all the eggs in the same basket, but I didn't really know what is it, and I didn't have financial background any sort. But his logic was that it's easier to train engineer or product guy to learn about finance, especially early stage, seed stage finance is not that complicated, than to have someone who studied finance and make them understand technology and product. So that was his job, and he didn't have huge market to hire people from. So he wanted to have someone who he can rather trust than not necessarily rely on hard skills. And yeah, I mean, I learned a lot. I worked with many different portfolio companies, helped them with everything from product and business partnerships and marketing. And at some point, there was a company where I was really involved heavily, and then we sold this company. It was very good outcome for us, and I was promoted to partner. And then, that's kind of how this whole thing started for me.
So that's how it started. So did you stay a few years in the investment world? Like, what happened between that and joining SEMrush? The company was the investment company. Oh, what company did you sell? So that's a good question.
After we sold most of the portfolio companies,
you sold most of them?
Yeah, we sold most of them. And I think there's probably one of them that we are still waiting, even though it's like almost 10 years. So there will be 10 years soon. But they're doing well. It's more like one of those cases where you wait, but it's in a good way.
And these are Russian companies?
No, we were doing mostly kind of sort of global companies that targeted global markets. A lot of them had R&D in Eastern Europe and Ukraine, Russia, Belarus. But yeah, we didn't target Russian market specifically. We were not big believers in consumer space in Russia, and even less we believed in B2B space in Russia. So yeah, we at that point we thought that it's a great market from talent perspective. You can get really talented engineers, and now even marketers and even business people. But it's not a good market to sell products to.
I love your humility, because you're speaking about things that the statistics, as a statistic guy, are really against you. Okay, and you're like passing over as if you said nothing. But you just told a story where you start working for a VC with no experience. Okay. And then, which I understand, because a product guy is like an integrator between technology and business. So it's actually a good person to hire for that. But you said, okay, and then we sold that company and we sold a lot of our portfolio, and, we left that alone. But like, that's it's actually, this is like a pivot point in your life, right? Because suddenly you get like a master's degree and, there's case studies behind you. So a little bit, I want to understand for a second, okay? Like, what are the companies? How did you sell that? Like, and what are the statistics there? Because it sounds like you did something incredible. Most of the portfolio, it's like, there's not a lot of companies that do most of their portfolio. Like, how many were sold and was successful?
Yeah, I think 2 deals were what I would call really, really good outcome. So one transaction technically returned the whole fund. Another one provided very, very material upside. Then some companies closed. Some companies technically they reached the point where they're sort of profitable, and founders just decided that they not going to make a huge story out of it, but it's going to be healthy business. Mm-hmm. So they just collected cash and distributed the cash. So we got some money out of it. Some companies pivoted and was sold later, but in a different way. And some companies are still there. So and growing. So that was the first fund that we invested. We did mostly seed in early stage, but I think the trick was that with those 2 deals that kind of did really well, we returned fund, and the question was, we can just raise a new one and deploy new capital, or we can do something else and just wait for the old portfolio to eventually be. So we were passive investors in all remaining transactions. We sold all the sold or pivoted all the companies where we were active investor, and we had some time to do other things. And unfortunately, I wouldn't say unfortunately, but one of the things that we notice is that from statistics point of view, it's really good to be an investor. But in terms of outcome, if you're founder of one of those successful companies, you end up doing better. And we felt that companies where we were more involved actually did much better than companies where we were not involved. Mm-hmm. And started kind of correlating this with our personal skill sets. And we thought, okay, if we can make the difference, then why don't we build a couple of businesses ourselves? So me and my partner, we decided to build a couple of companies. I was focused on gaming companies, so we built a game development studio and publishing company. So we published mass multiplayer online RPG games in Eastern Europe. And my friend actually started a SaaS company in competitive intelligence space, and then later sold this company to a penny. And then he started one more company and sold it to Adjust. So he decided to focus on entrepreneurial career and was very successful in it. My companies where I was more involved, they kind of went into I would say lifestyle business stage where they make money. It's
like Voodoo.
So we were publishing the mass multiplayer online RPG, which was browser based, almost like World of Warcraft, but in the browser and in a steampunk setting. It was a very cool game. I played it myself. Yet again, at some point you reach certain level where it's a stable business, and you can get cash, but you realize it's not going to be Fortnite. So in gaming you also have this sort of it's a hit driven business, even more than VC. So yeah, sometimes you have Fortnite, sometimes you have total failure, and sometimes you have something in the middle. So we had a game that was something in the middle. It was niche to the point where audience that we were able to acquire was very loyal. It was not for everyone because of the setting, because of requirements for skill. It was mid-core at the time where most of browser games were very casual. So, but it was good. I'm not complaining. It was good money. So. And then the second company was game development studio. So we were building games, but for other people, like Electronic Arts, and not always games. Sometimes we build assets, models, so pretty much anything. And work with a lot of really top gaming companies. EA, Wargaming, many other companies. So that was cool. But yet again, it's ultimately any sort of outsourcing is a labor arbitrage. So our differentiation was that we had really amazing talent, but the problem with outsourcing business based on amazing talent is that you cannot predictably hire amazing talent. So we had great people who stayed with us because they just like the vibe and culture and felt comfortable, but we couldn't find more people like this.
It's kind of fascinating for me that you're a statistic-oriented engineer and you actually chose to go to a non-statistical area and industry, because what you're doing is gaming as content is sort of like getting out a movie. It's either they love it or they don't love it, and there's no statistics that you can hold out. It's a taste. And actually your partner went to a SaaS-based where the statistics have a lot of modeling to do. So like it suddenly you're going to the opposite of what you did before, like on that sense. Are you a gamer? Like, do you love gaming and stuff like that? Is it a passion?
Exactly. I think most of people who do gaming, they understand how how bad the situation is from odds point of view, but they do it anyway. Because this is, let's say, childhood dreams. For me, it was childhood dream. I was always, fascinated by video games. Played a lot, and I just felt that this would be something very interesting, very comfortable. Unfortunately, building games is not as exciting as playing them. But I think most of people who go to gaming, very few usually have a solid plan. Like, we are going to make a huge company, do A, B, C, D. They just have a good idea that they want to see live. So,
what would you do differently this round? If you do it again and you had the energy, what would you do differently?
No, I wouldn't do anything different. I mean, it was great experience. I learned a lot. I didn't spend my whole life chasing something that is, impossible to achieve. But also, sometimes, by the way, sometimes in gaming, it's about, running long distance. So Ravio, for example, they did all sorts of things before they had this hit with the Angry Birds. I didn't wait enough, but I honestly think at that point I realized what this is about. I realized it's much less fun than I thought it would be. It's technically building game is not much different from process point of view than building other things. It's actually way more complicated with much lower reward. So, from my experience, some people get more lucky, but I think yet again I had my share of luck with gaming. As I said, the publishing business was quite healthy. Game development studio was also healthy and as a business, but it was a lifestyle business, not something you can scale. And when you're 28 years old, actually I was even younger, and I was like 26-ish. So it's too early to retire, and have a business where you just enjoy getting to the office. And with game development studio, as I said, the issue was not that I couldn't sell more deals and find more demand. It's just I didn't have supply and I didn't know how to scale supply. So, I could show up in the office maybe a couple days a week and sell enough to to have work to do for the next couple of months. So it was not at that point I started being not really bored, but started looking for other things. And that's when I was approached by guys from Target Global. So they've just raised a huge fund at that point, and needed someone who could help them to deploy the capital. So I joined the firm, and the strategy was to invest in things that we understand, which meant mostly consumer internet. And we looked at late stage where the job is mostly crunching the numbers. We had quite a lot of interesting deals. Companies like Lyft. In Europe, we did Delivery Hero, which is, yet again, at that point, it felt like it's a late stage deal, but they grew unbelievably since then. And right now they're $16 billion market cap publicly traded company. So that was very, very interesting experience. But at some point, those kind of consumer internet companies, they started to be sort of inflated. Was the period where everyone was looking for Uber of something, Uber of laundry or Uber of, and everything was very, very expensive in consumer internet space. Revenue multiples didn't make any sense to me. So I started looking at other things, and I felt that software is really undervalued. Like software multiples were almost all-time low, especially for SaaS. And I just felt this side of the market is undervalued. We should focus there.
How much was the multiplier for SaaS?
Yeah, I would say roughly 4 times, right? Which is, comparing to right now, I think, publicly traded companies have, 8 times, 10 times. And that time was more like 4. So we The problem was software is a complicated space, and we had this rule about investing only in things that we know. So, we looked at, software that we used, companies like Dropbox. And I personally used SEMrush for many years. Use it for marketing, use it for due diligence, and just felt that I understand their model, understand their product, so I would be qualified to invest. So I reached out to the guys, and I very quickly realized that this is probably one of the most financially successful companies that I've ever seen. In my definition of financial success, very profitable, growing fast, didn't raise any money ever. So I was very excited, but the problem was they were so profitable they didn't need my money. And as many investors do in those cases, I just wanted to invest in relationship. Was trying to be helpful, provided advice, introduce them to other people, and eventually we met one more time, and I gave them another pitch about why investors can be helpful beyond money and what else I can do for the business. And they just told that they still don't need money, but I seem to be very helpful, so they kind of made me an offer that I couldn't reject.
And then, so you sort of stopped being an investor entrepreneur and joined the team as an employee?
Yeah, you could say it this way. Yeah, I don't think it's a problem if you work with people you like. And I wouldn't go and be an employee at, I don't know, General Electric.
You believe in the product itself, so you want to be a partner.
Yeah. So if it's I don't see problem. I like to do things that I enjoyed. As you said, in this case, I like the product. I like the mission. I like people. So, being an employee, I don't have the sort of moral code that prevents me from being an employee somewhere. So.
Oh, I wasn't saying it in a critical way. I was just trying to understand where you're at.
Yeah.
And how were the people at the VC accepting you leaving?
It's a very pragmatic conversation. If you can show that you're going to make more money in the other place, people understand this. So in this case, it was kind of obvious calculation, and I had to give up a lot. Like I have, when you leave partnership, partners don't take it kindly. So you lose pretty much almost everything that you had in the firm. It depends on specific types of agreements, but yeah, I had to give up a lot. And also, I always, when I change places, I try to make transition as smooth as possible. So I think I stayed partially involved for at least a year to make sure that everything I started gets finished. That whatever I was working on is transitioned and in a good shape. So it was all good. I still have good relationships with my partners at Target. Help them where I can.
I have a question about getting into your kind of superpower or skill set here. I'm wondering something. Do you get bored quickly? Because you look like you like challenging a lot of you really evolved, right? Because you started as engineer and then product manager, and you said, okay, statistics, I'm moving on to the VC area. And in the VC, you changed different industries. And then you pivoted also to be like the advisor, financial strategist. And it sounds like you're a person of evolution. So it's not like you're an engineer. You're like anything you want to be, okay? And you're like changing characteristics. Like you have that engineering brain, but it looks like you're adapting and learning and sort of like changing and evolving with also the time. The times change, right? You will move to software in a point where you had to move to software because multipliers. So you're solving a lot of problems. And I'm wondering, is this something that you get bored and then you want to challenge yourself? Is it meeting different people and saying, okay, these people that I meet, I really like what they're doing. Like, what keeps you making up? What's your next step?
So there is no any sort of grand plan. I kind of just follow the thought process when I need to decide what I want to do, where I want to focus. Follow the thought process. Am I in this environment the best person to do this? If the answer is yes, then what sort of impact I can make there for the business, for the partners? And that's kind of how I evaluate things. So first, am I kind of technically qualified? And if yes, is it the best thing to do among other things where I'm qualified? And I think, especially in a small company, you have to wear a lot of hats. You can do marketing, but you also need to understand the product. You need to speak the same language with the engineers. So you're sort of kind of full stack professional. And this type of profile is very good for early stage companies, where you cannot hire 5 different people. So you want to hire one person who can do all those things. Obviously not full time, but at least close gaps. So as a company, you don't at least have gaps. And then as you move to later stages, you want to focus on specific areas where you feel stronger than other people. Where can I do finance and P&L for a small company of 20 people? Yeah, absolutely, easy. But am I the best person to do the same thing for a company with 800 employees? Probably not. There are people who have done it longer and better and more successful in it. So I need to focus on areas where I'm more helpful. And over time, this area kind of gets smaller in terms of what you do, but it's get bigger in terms of what sort of impact you can make. So that's how I think. My thought process of what to do next. And it's not just between companies, like you said, jumping from one occupation to another, but it's also within one company. Role evolves a lot. I used to be chief strategy officer when I joined, and I'm still chief strategy officer, but the role changed very, very significantly. As we were hiring extremely skillful and knowledgeable people, I would take off one hat and give it to them, and then focus narrowly on other areas. But because company gets bigger, even with narrow focus, you can still do more every year.
If you say, listen, I'm looking forward to succeed in this or do this, like what would be this?
That's a good question, because when I was young, I mean, it's not like I'm old now, but when I was younger, I wanted to retire early and just relax and do things. And when I had a chance, I felt that I just cannot do this. And I think this is very consistent with what I'm hearing from other people. Like our chief revenue officer, he had multiple opportunities to retire, and somehow he's still working and working more than a lot of people I've ever met. So for some reason, retirement is not necessarily going to be a good option. At least not early retirement. So if the question is, if this is not the option, then what else I can do? I mean, I would be happy to tell you that I have grand plan like Elon Musk, to go to and colonize Mars. That's unfortunately not the case. I don't plan too much forward for myself. I plan forward, 4 or 5 years for the company. I think company should have an end game, but I personally don't necessarily shouldn't. If tomorrow lives brings me to new challenges, that's great. If I'm optimizing for happiness for me and for family. If my family and me are happy with where we are today, I just need to continue doing this. And for me personally, I think what makes me happy is sort of solving new puzzles in a way. So I don't want to have problems like global pandemic to solve. That's a little bit above my pay grade. But I want to have challenges that I reasonably can solve, and I think that's what gets me excited. I think if I just stayed at home for a half a year and played PlayStation, I wouldn't be a happy person. So, yet again, this is right now. Maybe tomorrow it changes, but right now I just want more challenges that are interesting but solvable. I don't want to hit unbreakable wall.
And what would you say your superpower is?
Well, I mean, we talked a little bit about luck. I think it is important. The trick is if you do some research, most of people feel that they're lucky. So I try to justify that I'm probably more lucky than many other people. There is some logic to prove it, but I think ultimately it's just subjective, and most of people feel lucky. So that would be not necessarily the best thing to pick as a superpower, just because a lot of people feel this way. Yeah.
First of all, Domino in Deadpool had the same superpower, so it's not really as bad. But over that, I think lucky. When you're saying, can I just try? So you can tell me if I'm wrong. But I think because you're a statistic person, okay, that decisiveness in the right area, okay, makes the potential of being right higher. Okay, so minimizing the risk is not really lucky. You're right that maybe you have 80% of getting a good decision. There's 20% that you have to be lucky not being behind them. But I sort of see, because you have a lot of success behind it, at the end of the day, you picked each time a place either that you knew about or was safe or multipliers or arbitrage, where statistically, okay, you have a high percentile to be lucky. So seeking out opportunities, everybody has to be lucky, but you had higher potential than someone who just, did things from a different design. So I think decisiveness is actually, deciding where to be is, a good superpower.
And I agree. And I think a lot of this is like fundamentally there is, some fundamental like just from statistics theory, but you can make numbers work in your favor. Mm-hmm. So I think that's, if I had to choose this way, the superpower, and I, wouldn't call it luck, because luck is I think Domino example is actually good. I would like to feel like I'm Domino and I'm just, always lucky. I'm not like this way, but you're right. I mean, choosing your path to make numbers work in your favor is a good superpower. And in seeing the world in numbers and probabilities, I think is also a good number. People get, I think, yet again, there is some fundamental luck, like tossing the coin, but there is also the type of luck where you subconsciously make decisions, but your brain actually did the whole math.
Right.
So yeah, that's one. And then I think, I'm really, I wouldn't call myself extraordinary in anything. I can play guitar very, very average. I play computer games very average. But I think what was different from me, I could pick up things very fast and become average, a little bit above average in almost anything. So that kind of gave me the context where, because all of these experiences, and because it was easy for me to pick up things, I would on average make right decision with higher probability than most of people. And I think with life, the trick is don't need to be right 100% times. You just need to be right more than other people. And that can lead to unproportional success. And I like the stock market example. In stock market, if you can be right 51% of time out of 100, you're extremely rich, like better than anyone, because you're making those choices so many times that even this extra 1% gives you unprecedented gain. But that's only 1% better than random. So in life, you make a little bit less decisions than in the stock market. But let's say I'm just 10% better in making decisions than random. That's already good. And if some other person is 5% better than random, then I'm already have double game versus random versus this person. So that's kind of how I approach this kind of superpower thing.
I love that, because you're talking about 100% of money, right? So you're either in the winning side, taking the 5% for something else, or not. So there's like 100% at the end. So you just have to be 1% more right, and you're taking the 1% from the losing side. I like that. And okay, last question. If you were to decide to invest in something, what is a tip for an entrepreneur? Like, don't make a mistake, okay? Have this ready or do this. Like, just one thing that's super important.
So this one thing always changes, but I started my life, not life, career, professional life, with an approach that I should be the smartest guy in the room. And then at some point I evolved to the understanding that if I'm the smartest guy in the room, I might be in the wrong room. So I think the overall conclusion is that you need to be smart and helpful for the team and partners, but if you are the only one who delivers value, then it's a wrong room. And I think that's how I choose partners to work with. I want to see people who are way ahead of me in certain areas, and I can be way ahead in other areas, but that's what makes a good team. I think a lot of mistakes that I've seen from CEOs in early stage companies, they want to be the only smartest person, final decision maker. I just don't believe it is feasible in the long run. But I had the same attitude when I was younger. So that's kind of one thing that I would probably not necessarily change, but I would change certain decisions that I made back in the day if I knew them.
Wow, you're giving us, I think, a lot of room for thought here, a lot of food for thought here. And I'm personally super curious about where you're going to be 5 years from now.
Yeah, you never know. I used to have plans, but my grandma, my grandma used to say that if you want to make God laugh, you should tell him or her, your plans. So the idea is, you can have whatever plans, but life will not take them into account.
Yeah, John Lennon has a similar quote. Maybe your grandma is Yoko Ono.
Well, I honestly don't know, but she definitely has some crazy superpowers. Yeah, unfortunately she passed away, but yeah, I learned so much from her. It was very, very influential through my childhood, and like with all grandparents, you always wish you had a chance to spend more time with them when you're grown up, and you can appreciate the wisdom instead of just rejecting everything like teenagers do. But she had extraordinary view, and I think she was one of the first people who explained me the value of liquid assets and why liquid assets are better than liquid assets in some way. And she did it without any sort of financial background or anything. And her idea was that, if you think that, just buying jewelry is an investment because jewelry is expensive, well, try to sell it. So, and I was very, okay, yeah, I haven't thought about this. How do I sell this thing?
Like not the typical grandma-grandson relationship, I think.
No, mine made meatballs really well. So.
No, it's that's the same. I learned all the nutrition things from her, but her approach was, she was coming from different backgrounds. So, for example, right now I wouldn't say I don't eat bread, but I try to eat less bread. If she learned about this, she would be devastated. Like what do you even eat if you don't eat bread?
Yeah, the generations evolving and thinking differently and adopting such different mindsets.
Yeah, but the problem, their generation, they didn't have enough food, and we have too much food. So
yeah, and handling that. Okay, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been really great. I have a lot to think about now. I think Ronen does too.
Yeah, I really like your perspective in the last two notes. I think that gives a really deep thought of like also what looking for, and I really appreciate your humility as well. I really am happy that we met you in this age and not when you were 26.
Yeah.
Because apparently you're different.
I hope we'll be in touch, and I hope to do this again sometime in the near future.
Perfect. Really enjoyed the conversation. I like those types of podcasts.
And and also with SEMrush, like I'm a user, I love it. So keep on the good work there.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Real life.
Superpowers.
Up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
Real life.
Superpowers.